In the third year of our engagement, Xie Kongjing postponed the wedding date once again. He left without saying goodbye, going to Jiangnan to study, and had someone relay this message to me: when your words and conduct are worthy of the position of the heir's wife, I will naturally return to marry you. I stood balancing a teacup for a whole shikan, my legs aching unbearably, and to make matters worse, my cat came to cause trouble, making me fall. The rattan cane from Mama really hurt when it hit my body. These past 2 years, practicing posture in the early morning, learning etiquette at noon, studying music and painting in the evening. Not a moment of leisure, kneeling in the ancestral hall to reflect. I looked up and suddenly realized spring had already arrived. I suddenly didn't want to marry anymore. Unable to defy the imperial decree, I switched the person and married the Xie family's eldest young master, who had returned to the capital to recuperate later. When Xie Kongjing returned home from Jiangnan and saw me dressed as a married woman, he lost his composure and called out Axi. Xi Lingkeng, who had always been gentle and steady, looked at his younger brother and rarely lost his temper. Have all those years of learning propriety gone into a dog's belly? Is Axi a name you can call? You should address her as sister-in-law now. I was the last one to know about Xie Kongjing going to Jiangnan to study. The water in the celadon teacup swayed and swayed, and the sadness in my heart swayed along with it. A ball of fluff landed on the back of my foot. Just then Da Hua came to cause trouble too, stepping on my shoulder to jump to the ground. With that, the teacup shattered, and I took a tumble too. You death-seeking beast! The nanny's cane came whipping through the air. I instinctively pulled Da Hua into my arms. The cane struck hard across the back of my hand, burning with pain. The nanny, frustrated with my failure to improve, punished me to kneel for an hour. The prayer cushion in the ancestral hall was damp and hard, my knees aching from pressing against it. Fu Shun, the young servant who came to deliver the message, saw my sorry state and stood in the corridor rubbing his hands, trying to console me. Miss Axi, don't be sad. The young master will be back in just 3 months anyway. Actually, the young master is doing this for your own good. If Miss Axi learns proper etiquette, your days in the Marquis's manor will be smoother in the future. I thought for a moment and asked him if Miss Wen had also gone. Miss Wen, Fushun stammered. Miss Wen also went. The only daughter of Director Wen of the Imperial Academy, exceptionally talented, a model among noble ladies in the capital Xie Kongjang, always compared me to her. Now it made sense. Several days ago, I went to the Imperial Academy to deliver knee guards to Xie Kongjing. I waited for a long time but didn't see him, only to run into Miss Wen instead. Seeing her curiously staring at the knee guards in my hand, I kindly explained that the wind and sand in Jiangbei were harsh, and one couldn't manage without a good pair of knee guards. But it turned out he was going to Jiangnan, not Jiangbei. Jiangnan has spring-like weather all year round. What use would there be for knee pads? He is just afraid I'll follow along and embarrass him. That is why he is keeping it from me so desperately. No wonder Miss Wen had that hesitant look on her face at the time. The way she looked at me was very strange. Miss, please don't overthink it. Fushun carefully chose his words. Miss Wen is very good. And you, Miss Axi, are also very good. Don't belittle yourself. I looked up at him, and his ears immediately turned red. He stammered to add, like, Miss Axi is great at archery, and last time you even saved that big tabby cat that was stealing fish from the kitchen. As he spoke, he deflated first, hanging his head and muttering, actually, the young master isn't bad by nature. He just wants to temper Mrs. Disposition. Temper my disposition. I was stunned, finding it laughable. 3 years, and he still hasn't tempered enough. I barely recognized myself anymore. Looking up, I saw the pear blossoms blooming beautifully outside the window and apricots weighing down the branches. The spring breeze gently wafted, bringing a room full of floral and fruity fragrance. A little maid was climbing a tree to secretly pick fruit, her laughter crisp and clear, drifting in from afar. I rubbed Dahua's head. This silly cat still thought it was playing, pawing at my loose hair with its claws. I suddenly felt utterly bored. The spring scenery outside was so lovely. I should have been climbing trees to pick fruit and flowers too. instead of imprisoning myself in this tiny place for someone who looks down on me. Learning rules I'll never learn well, wasting good times for nothing. I don't want to marry him, Shi Kongjing, anymore. Speaking of which, this engagement between Shi Kongjing and me, so mismatched in status, really came about absurdly. 3 years ago, His Majesty had a sudden whim and went to supervise the army in Jiangbei. One day he went hunting in the deep mountains and nearly ended up in a tiger's belly. It was father, who was hunting in the mountains, who threw himself forward to save His Majesty's life. His Majesty was overjoyed and immediately bestowed this marriage engagement as a reward. Father originally only wanted some gold and silver treasures, but now he was dumbfounded and could only send me to the capital to await marriage. This wait has been 3 years. The first time I saw Shi Kongjing was when he returned from the Imperial Academy after school, just as I was chasing Big Flower up a tree, one person and one cat staring at each other with wide eyes. Shi Kongjing's face showed anger, thinking I was a newly arrived maid with no sense of propriety, and he ordered Fushun to kick me out. I looked down at him from the tree and explained in a clear voice, "I am not some maid, I am your not yet married wife. My name is Tao Shi." Shi Kongjing froze, only then taking a serious look at me. After a moment he frowned. "I don't want to marry you. You should go home quickly." I looked at him and frowned just like he did. "I don't want to marry you either. How about we just call off this engagement?" Fushun was so anxious on the side that he broke into a sweat, repeatedly urging, "My 2 young ancestors, this is a marriage bestowed by the emperor. You mustn't joke about it." A trace of disgust flashed in Shi Kongjing's eyes as he sneered. The matriarch of the Shi family must naturally be virtuous and learned with proper conduct. His gaze swept over my mud-stained hem, my messy hair, and finally landed on the large flower in my hand, letting out a scornful laugh. "Not like some wild girl who does whatever she pleases, making people laugh at us if word gets out. You haven't even read the women's precepts, have you?" He raised an eyebrow. "How will you manage the household and raise children in the future?" I opened my mouth but didn't know what to say. I grew up in the mountains and wilderness since childhood. No one ever taught me these rules. Seeing me at a loss for words, he smiled knowingly. "The wedding is postponed. I'll marry you when you've learned proper etiquette." He was certain I couldn't learn it well, wanting to make me back down from the difficulty. Too bad he didn't understand me. I once followed father, lying in wait for 3 days and nights without sleep or rest, and hunted the biggest wild boar in the mountains. That stubborn streak in my heart was stirred up. I climbed down from the tree and called out to him, "Then it is settled. You better not go back on your word." Shi Kongjing pressed his lips together tightly and clapped hands with me to make an oath. "It is a deal." And so every day I practiced my posture in the early morning, learned etiquette at noon, and studied music and painting in the evening, without a moment's rest. It is just that I never expected the rules would be so hard to learn. The nanny's cane really hurts when it strikes my body. Shi Kongjing used this as an excuse to postpone the wedding twice. By the 3rd year, just when it seemed I was about to make it through, he left without saying goodbye and went to Jiangnan to study. That day, at the Imperial Academy, I waited until my legs went numb before finally seeing Shi Kongjing come out with his classmates. They walked and talked, and a classmate teased him with a laugh. "Brother Shi, the other day I ran into your fiancé on the street. She was so proper and well-mannered, I almost didn't recognize her. Looks like that girl is determined to marry you." A round of meaningful laughter erupted around them. "If you ask me, Brother Shi, you might as well marry her sooner rather than later," someone advised. "That girl has suffered quite a bit for you these 3 years, forcibly smoothing out her wild nature. That is sincere enough." Shi Kongjing responded carelessly, then suddenly remembered something and smiled mockingly. "What is the rush? She is just a hunter's daughter. Being able to enter our Dinyuan Marquis Manor is already smoke rising from her ancestors' graves. After all, she is of humble birth. These 3 years she has only learned the surface. Naturally, she has to strive in every way, begging me to treat her well. Besides, Next month, Miss Wen will be going to the Women's Academy to teach. I am thinking of having her attend classes too, so she can get a good look at what a true lady of a great family is like. The group was chatting animatedly when Fushun, with his sharp eyes, spotted me first. Shi Kongjing followed his gaze over, his face showing some guilt, yet he still stiffened his neck, refusing to yield. I didn't say anything wrong. I didn't cry or make a fuss, but walked straight to Fushun and shoved the knee pads into his arms. These knee pads, throw them away for me. They're calling these things now. My heart couldn't help but feel sour. It is just that before leaving, father repeatedly warned me that this marriage arrangement was decreed by the emperor himself, and I absolutely mustn't be willful. Even if wronged, I must swallow it down. We're just ordinary common folk. We can't afford to offend noble families. Even though I wanted to back out, I couldn't find a good way to extricate myself for the time being. At night, tossing and turning, unable to sleep, I climbed up the big banyan tree in the courtyard. I missed father, I missed home. The night was deep, with only a hint of pale light in the east. The earth was hazy, flickering between light and dark. A clear and upright figure, slowly wheeling a wheelchair, entered my line of sight. My heart stirred. Upon arriving in Jiangnan and settling at the relay station, the attendant and Gui pulled out a pair of knee pads from the bundle. The knee pads had fine stitching and smooth leather. Clearly much care had been put into them. Gui was stunned, then realized these must have been secretly tucked in by Fushun. Shi Kongjing glanced at them, somewhat surprised. Weren't they thrown away? Gui's mind worked quickly, and he immediately held the knee pads up before Shi Kongjing, half-jokingly saying, "Young master, are you really willing to throw them away? You don't know this, but Miss Axie put in quite a lot of effort for these knee pads. Back then, she ran through every leather goods shop in the city and finally managed to find a fine piece of tiger skin. She carefully cut the material, softened the leather, and sewed the stitches. It took her a whole month to finish." Shi Kongjing's expression turned awkward, and the image of Axie sewing the knee pads stitch by stitch under the lamplight floated into his mind. He felt he might have gone a bit too far. Axie was simply wholeheartedly wanting to marry him. That couldn't be considered any kind of fault. He had embarrassed her in public, so naturally she'd be angry with him. Fortunately, she was innocent and carefree, with a childlike nature even when angry. She was easy to coax. A handful of pine nut candy could make her happy. Objects resemble their owners. She was just like that cat she raised, silly and goofy. He didn't know what had gotten into him these past days, but he seemed to have caught her silliness too. Along the way, whenever he saw a tree with thick, sturdy branches, he'd think it was perfect for Axie to climb. Whenever he saw a crystal-clear stream, he'd think it was perfect for Axie to take off her shoes and socks and go splashing around. And even when he spotted a wild cat that came darting out from somewhere in the mountain forest, he'd wonder whether he should catch it and bring it back to keep Axie's silly cat company, right? Now, looking at that pair of knee pads, his heart trembled, feeling somewhat flustered for some reason. He hurriedly coughed a few times and said vaguely, "I received a letter from home yesterday. My older brother got married, so I must carefully select this wedding gift and make it up to him later. In that case, why not also pick out some jewelry that girls like for Axie while we're at it, as an apology gift?" He wondered which family's young lady had made his usually steady and proper older brother so eager that he got married without waiting for him to return. Gui nodded with a smile. The next day, at the largest treasure pavilion in the city, Shi Kongjing quickly selected a pair of white jade nuptial cups with intertwining lotus patterns, wishing his brother and sister-in-law flowers, blooming on twin lotus stems, and 100 years of marital bliss. When it came to picking jewelry for Axie, however, he found it difficult. One moment thinking she didn't like gaudy colors, so he should pick something plain and simple. The next moment thinking she didn't like constraints, so he should pick something simple and elegant. After spending quite some effort, he finally selected a pearl and gold-plated hairpin, a pair of jade and glass earrings, and a white jade bracelet with cloud patterns. Seeing that Shi Kongjing had his eye on a thin gold bell chain, Gui boldly teased his master. "This servant has heard that the newlywed brides of Jiangnan love wearing this kind of chain with bells the most. At night when they move," before he could finish speaking, he suddenly got a knock on the head. He saw his master's face flush red, unable to speak properly. You dog, where the hell is your mind going? This is for that silly cat." And Gui hurriedly covered up, fawning as he said, "With the young master spending so much effort, Miss Axie will surely be delighted." Hearing this, Xie Kongjing felt much better inside. He couldn't help but think that if he set a wedding date himself and married Axie into the family, she would definitely be even happier. Thinking this way, he felt it wasn't a bad idea at all. Now even his elder brother had gotten married. It should be his turn too. Once matters here were settled, he would rush back to the capital and give her a surprise. He caressed the patterns on the earring, his heart itching. The 3 months of study travel suddenly felt extraordinarily long. Finally back in the capital, the first thing he did was to go find Axie. "I brought quite a lot of novel things. Axie will surely like them when she sees them. Where is she now?" Fushun followed alongside, hemming and hawing for a long while, not daring to speak up. Nearly the entire Marquis Manor had been searched, yet Axie was still nowhere to be seen. Xie Kongjang was getting somewhat impatient. It wasn't until reaching the eldest young master's courtyard that he finally spotted a familiar figure. Xie Kongjing stared at Axie dressed as a married woman, his eyes widening as he lost his composure and called out her name. Just as he was about to step forward, a cold and angry voice suddenly came from behind. "Have all the rules you've learnt these years gone to the dogs? Is a she someone you can call so casually? Now you should be calling her sister-in-law." The wheelchair rolled over fallen flowers on the ground, stopping beside as Xie Kongjang stood frozen in place. The sunlight was brilliant, leaf shadows swaying on the bluestone slabs, making him feel somewhat dazed, even though she had her hair done up in a married woman's bun and wore a pomegranate-patterned dress, looking every bit a newlywed bride. The expression in her eyes and brows still carried the vigorous spirit of the wild countryside. She was the she he knew, no mistake about it. His gaze shifted back and forth between she and his elder brother, saying in confusion, "Sister-in-law." In the slanting shadow of the flowering tree, she nodded slightly, Dehua in her arms lazily stretched, glancing at him sideways. In a flash, Xie Kongjang suddenly understood. She was getting back at him, angry that he'd left for Jiangnan without telling her, angry that after 3 years he still hadn't married her. She'd deliberately dressed up as a married woman to make him jealous. He felt both annoyed and amused at once. This kind of girlish coquettishness he could actually handle, but this was far too improper. He had no idea how she managed to get his elder brother to go along with her nonsense. He put on a stern face and said seriously, this kind of joke isn't funny at all. Brother, how come even you are fooling around with her?" But Axie didn't even look at him, only affectionately stroking Dahua's fur, not even lifting her eyelids. "I am not joking, I really did get married." "That is quite a temper, looks like it won't settle down anytime soon." Xie Kongjing reached out his hand toward Axie, frowning as he scolded, "So disrespectful, even getting brother to mess around with you. While I was away these past days, did you slack off again? Have you properly learned all the rules you were supposed to learn?" After speaking, he felt his tone was too harsh and hurriedly tried to make up for it. "Even if you haven't learned them well, it is fine. I am in a good mood today. I won't fuss with you. Axie, come back with me. I have something to tell you." Axie ignored him, his hand awkwardly suspended in midair. Xie Kongjing completely ran out of patience, strode forward, and tried to grab her wrist. Before his hand could touch Axie, Xie Linheng blocked it with one hand. "Jing, no one's joking with you. She is your sister-in-law now. If you keep being so disrespectful, go kneel in the ancestral hall." Xie Linheng's expression was serious, not at all like he was joking. Xie Kongjing's face turned deathly pale. He staggered back a step, turned to look at Fushun for confirmation. Fushun didn't dare raise his head. His body trembled, his knees went soft, and he collapsed to the ground. Xie Kongjang's mind buzzed. The brocade box in his hand dropped to the ground with a thud, and a pair of white jade nuptial cups rolled out. He stared fixedly at the pair of nuptial cups, his voice trembling as he confirmed, "The girl who married elder brother is you." But His Majesty clearly granted marriage between him and Axi, so how could Axi turn around and marry elder brother? Si Ling Heng merely glanced at him coolly, his words chillingly cold. His Majesty spoke of granting marriage to the Dingyuan Marquis Manor, but this manor doesn't have only you as its young master. Since you were unwilling to marry, your elder brother took your place. Later, we'll simply find you another suitable match. Xie Kongjiang looked at Axi in disbelief, then at his elder brother, his mind in complete chaos. He opened his mouth but couldn't speak. Fushun remembered Madame's instructions and hurriedly got up from the ground, grabbed Xie Kongjiang's arm, and forcibly dragged him away. If they didn't leave now, their young master would probably lose his mind. The courtyard became quiet again. Xie Lingheng turned around and said gently, "Give him some time, he'll figure it out. This isn't your fault, don't overthink it." I secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Xie Lingheng was a gentle and upright gentleman who never made things difficult for others. Even the matter of the substituted marriage was brought up by him first. That day I hid in the tree and cried for a while, but ultimately didn't dare to speak up rashly. After all, he and Xie Kongjing share the same mother. Their interests are tied together. How could he hurt their harmony for an outsider like me? I was reckless. As daylight gradually brightened, I climbed down from the tree. Not paying attention for a moment, my skirt hem tore, and my hand got cut too. Just as I was in this awkward state, Xie Lingheng saw me. His wheelchair slowly came to a stop before my eyes. Through the morning mist, our faces were blurred to each other, yet he saw through my intentions at a glance. "Does Miss Axi wish to break off the engagement?" I was startled, not knowing where I had slipped up for him to catch on. Seeing my shock, Xie Lingheng let out a long sigh and explained. This marriage arrangement was originally bestowed by His Majesty because he feared the Xia family's achievements overshadowing the throne, intending to humiliate us. Imperial commands cannot be defied. I am disabled and unworthy as a match, unwilling to delay the young lady, so the engagement fell to aging instead. I originally thought that although aging has been mischievous since childhood, he has at least read the books of sages. I never imagined he would make you wait 3 years without name or status, causing you much grievance. I apologized to you on his behalf. Xie Lingheng being so straightforward truly shocked me. Regarding the hidden matters of the Marquis Manor, he told me frankly without the slightest concealment. "So young master you are." His words left me feeling uncertain. Xie Lingheng said gently, "Since this matter arose because of me, I should be the one to take responsibility. So, does this mean he is going to marry me?" But his next words were even more beyond my expectations. "This marriage was originally something the Xia family owed you. You are in the prime of your youth and should be matched with a good husband. I want to make an agreement with you, miss. After we marry, we'll be husband and wife in name only. After some time passes, we'll find an excuse to divorce. Once this matter is settled, whether you want to return to your hometown or find another good husband, it will all be up to you. Is that acceptable?" I was stunned for a long while before I understood he was sincerely considering things from my perspective. He was asking for my wishes, giving me a chance to choose. Since entering the Marquis Manor to await marriage, this was the first time anyone had asked me whether I was willing, whether it was good or not. I had no one to rely on in the manor, and there wasn't much I could hold on to. So I agreed. When he heard I was going to marry the eldest young master, Fushun anxiously paced in circles. "Miss Axi, how could you change your mind? If the heir apparent finds out," he didn't dare speak ill of Xie Linheng, so he said a whole bunch of good things about Xie Kongjing instead. I knew what he was trying to say. Nothing more than that. Xie Linheng couldn't walk properly, was 8 years older than me, and had been stripped of his position by the emperor. He couldn't compare to how well matched Xie Kongjing and I were. But I knew what kind of person the Xie family's eldest young master was. 3 years ago, when the Northern Dai's 100,000 cavalry pressed at the border, old General Xie and second young master Xie led 3,000 remnant soldiers to defend Jianmen Pass to the death, covering the evacuation of the people within the pass to the south. Unfortunately, by the time the imperial reinforcements arrived, both had already died in battle. Xie Linheng was originally a civil official. After learning the news, he requested an imperial decree to personally go to Jiangbei. Within 3 months, he led light cavalry deep into enemy territory and personally beheaded the left-wise prince of the northern Di, avenging his father and brother latter. He remained stationed in Jiangbei, intercepting foreign enemies, with illustrious military achievements. The Xia family was full of loyal martyrs. I grew up in Jiangbei and was very familiar with their stories. Xi Linheng, as a person, had an iron backbone, with both sentiment and righteousness. Marrying me and helping me out of my predicament, I am grateful to him. The wedding date was quickly set, the 8th day of the 3rd month, when spring was at its finest, an auspicious day for marriage. Madame sent a matron to arrange the wedding ceremony. Face threading, grooming, bidding farewell to parents, boarding the bridal sedan, performing the wedding bows at every step. My heart was in my throat. I didn't want anyone to find fault and embarrass Xie Linheng. I barely made it through to the end of the ceremony, already dizzy and seeing stars from hunger. Fortunately, Xie Linheng quickly finished entertaining the guests and entered the bridal chamber. Hearing the sound, I couldn't help but clutch the wedding handkerchief in my hand tightly. Even though this marriage was fake, it was my first time getting married. Saying I wasn't nervous would be a lie. The veil was slowly lifted, and I looked directly into his clear, gentle eyes. I instinctively held my breath. 3 months ago, Xie Linheng returned to the capital and had been keeping a low profile. I had only seen him a few times in total. Being this close, I realized he had an exceptionally handsome appearance. Shi Kongjiang was also good-looking, but his features didn't have that imposing heroic air that commanded respect without anger like his. When he glanced at me, I immediately lowered my head, my heart pounding like a drum. Mingming Momo's instructions had run through my mind countless times: how to drink the nuptial wine, how to help my husband change clothes. What auspicious words to say, yet now I couldn't remember any of it. Just as I was panicking, I suddenly heard a soft sigh. Miss Axie, this marriage was not your wish, yet you've gone through the trouble of going along with it. I am truly sorry. Axie Linheng sat upright in his green bamboo wheelchair, lifting his eyes to look at me, like a bright moon rising over the Tianshan mountains. This was already the 2nd time he had expressed his apology to me. Actually, this marriage was just as unwished for by him. Clearly we were only strangers to each other, yet because he couldn't bear to see me suffer, he was willing to endure outsiders' criticism and marry me. After all, I had been Xie Kongjing's fiancé for 3 years, but in the end I married him instead. However outsiders viewed me, they would view him the same way. Thinking of this, I solemnly assured him, "Young master, please rest assured. From now on, I will definitely follow the rules properly, be a good young mistress of the household, and absolutely not bring you any shame." Xie Linheng's eyes held a smile, the corners of his mouth curving upward. "Miss Axie, no need to be so formal. However you were in Jiangbei before, continue the same way here." I thought Xie Linheng was just being polite. But the day after the wedding, he had already informed the lady of the house that I didn't need to continue learning rules with the Momo, and all the trivial matters like morning and evening greetings were exempted. Moving into Luquan Garden, I truly experienced what it meant to be carefree and unrestrained. There weren't many servants here, and each one was gentle. When they saw me, they would only bow respectfully before going about their own business, without the slightest bit of prying. No one constantly watched my every move anymore. No one controlled how I ate, how I walked, or how I spoke. Most importantly, I no longer had to live my life reading others' expressions. Everything about Luquan Garden was good, except it was a bit too quiet. When Xie Linheng returned from the medical clinic, he happened to see me on my tiptoes, trying hard to reach Dahua's tail. These past few days, the little guy had been running wild without restraint, and somehow had darted into Xie Linheng's study. I could see it was about to claw scratches into the pages of the military books on the bookshelf. I was extremely anxious. Xie Kongjing never allowed Dahua to step into his courtyard, let alone his study. Even I wasn't allowed to touch those precious books of his. Life had been too comfortable, and I'd been careless for a moment, forgetting about this matter. If these military books were damaged, I am afraid neither Dahua nor I would have an easy time. As we remained at a standstill, Xie Linheng looked up at me, smiled, and asked an unexpected question. "Does Madam wish to read these military books?" He had clearly misunderstood. Afraid that Dahua would annoy him, I steeled myself and answered yes. He asked again what other books I usually read. I answered honestly, Emphases, Ji Linhang's. Brows furrowed slightly, and my heart sank along with it. I began to understand somewhat. Nanny had said that noble ladies from prestigious families must thoroughly read the Book of Songs and Songs of Chu, but I could barely stumble through the woman's precepts. Most likely he, like Xie Kongjing, wanted me to be learned and well-mannered so I wouldn't embarrass him. I lowered my eyes, waiting for him to ask coldly like Xie Kongjing used to, "How is your reading coming along?" But Xie Linheng looked up at me and asked earnestly, "Do you enjoy reading it?" Not how the reading was going, but whether I enjoyed reading it. I froze for a moment, then shook my head blankly. Xie Linheng smiled faintly and asked again, "Then what does Madam enjoy doing most?" I nervously clutched the corner of my skirt and answered instinctively, horseback riding, hunting, archery. The moment the words left my mouth, I regretted them, remembering how Xie Kongjing had angrily confiscated my quiver before. I hastily added, "But now I don't." "Then go do it." The unfinished words stuck in my throat, and I could only stare at him in a daze. Xie Linhang had beautiful eyes. When he smiled, it was like snow melting in spring. "If you like it, then go ahead and do it. You don't need to change yourself for anyone." Only then did I belatedly realize that Xie Linheng wasn't angry at all. It seemed like he was concerned about me. As he spoke, he pulled out a military strategy book from the bookshelf and handed it to me. "If there is anything you don't understand, feel free to ask me any time." I tried reading a few pages and discovered that the principles in this military text were similar to my hunting experience, gradually finding it quite interesting. Whenever I encountered something obscure and difficult to understand, I would ask Xie Linheng, and he could always explain it clearly in simple terms. Besides, with his permission, every few days his attendant Yuan would take me to the suburban horse grounds to ride, returning only after riding to our heart's content. Junan was a veteran who had been on the battlefield, superb in horsemanship and archery, and I learned a lot from him. Such days were even more carefree than being an immortal, until Xie Kongjing returned home from his studies in Jiangnan. Xie Kongjing couldn't even remember how he made it back to his courtyard. Fushun helped him sit down, feeding him water and helping him catch his breath. So busy he was covered in sweat. Seeing Xie Kongjing obediently compliant, as if his soul had left his body, not coming to his senses for a long time, his heart couldn't help but rise with worry again. Could he really have been angered into something serious? Fushun didn't dare delay, ordering a maid to fetch the household physician on one hand while consoling his master on the other. "Young master, you must take care of your health. Try to think positively." These words would have been fine left unsaid, but once spoken, Xie Kongjing only felt the pent-up anger in his chest surging, wishing he could kill this dog slave on the spot. He grabbed Fushun by the collar, eyes bloodshot as he demanded, "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Fushun trembled like a sieve. "It was Madam who forbade. This matter was suspicious from the start. As soon as the news broke, he wrote a letter overnight and ordered someone to send it by express horse, but was stopped by his wife, left with no other choice. He lived in fear day after day. Now that the blade hanging over his head had finally fallen, he felt somewhat relieved and could only steel himself to continue persuading. "Young master, please don't insist anymore. The capital is full of noble young ladies. Where can't you find someone better than Miss Axie?" Axie Kongjing suddenly let go, his eyes bloodshot. "What do you know?" "Axie is the best girl in this world. There is no one better than her." Axie Kongjing couldn't understand how Axie, who had worked so hard to learn the rules and only wanted to marry him, could turn around and marry someone else. And why was this person his elder brother father and second brother had led troops away for years? Elder brother was both brother and father to him. How could he steal his beloved? Could it be mother meddling in this? For a moment, countless thoughts flashed through Xie Kongjing's mind. He was determined to get to the bottom of this. Fushun watched curiously as his master rummaged through boxes and chests, pulling out a thin gold bell chain, then turned to ask, "Where is that silly cat?" Dahua was missing. Upon learning this news, I couldn't even bother eating and hurriedly searched everywhere. In the bamboo grove corridor, Xie Kongjing held Dahua, clearly waiting for me. A thin gold bell chain hung around Dahua's neck, making crisp sounds as it struggled. Dusk gathered on all sides, the light gradually fading. Only his pair of eyes gazed over intensely. Axie, tell me, did mother force you, or did elder brother coerce you? No matter which reason it is, as long as you are unwilling, I will find a way to protect you. Even now, he still couldn't accept the fact that I had become his sister-in-law. I looked at him, my tone unprecedentedly calm. No, I did this willingly. Si Kongjing froze, as if unwilling to accept it, but the person you clearly wanted to marry was me. In his questioning tone was a grievance he couldn't hide. I didn't know what Si Kongjing was feeling aggrieved about. Hadn't he always looked down on me the most? Now that I wasn't marrying him, he should be happy. No matter how much I study those rules, I still can't compare to Miss Wen. I don't want to make things difficult for myself anymore. I didn't want to say more to him, only wanting to hold Dahua and leave. Si Kongjing gripped my hand tightly, saying urgently, "You don't need to learn any rules anymore. From now on you. Young master, please conduct yourself properly." I couldn't help but shake off his hand. Now our statuses are different. You've always valued propriety, the most pulling and tugging like this. Won't it invite gossip? Just one sentence left, Si Kongjing frozen in place. I took the opportunity to pick up Dahua and turned to leave. Turning past the corridor, Xie Lingheng's wheelchair sat quietly beneath the wisteria trellis, unknown how long he'd been there. My heart skipped a beat. I didn't know why, but inexplicably felt somewhat guilty. Footsteps approached from behind. Afraid that Xie Kongjing would pester me again, in my desperation I blurted out, "Husband, what are you doing here?" Xie Lingheng froze, then uncomfortably clenched his fist and coughed lightly. He didn't answer my question, but instead asked me, "There is a gathering on Duke Street tonight. Do you want to go?" Of course I do. I lifted my skirt and trotted over, pushing his wheelchair toward the main gate. Tonight there was no curfew in the capital. Wine shops and tea houses stayed open all night, and the streets were bustling with crowds, exceptionally lively. I pushed Xie Lingheng through the crowd, clutching the silver he gave me in my hand, my eyes barely enough to take it all in. I had come here once before with Si Kongjing. He found me annoying for being fascinated by everything, looking like a country bumpkin fool, and was too lazy to wait for me. So he went back to the manor first. I was new to the place and didn't know the way. I walked alone on the streets for a long time with no mood to enjoy myself. By the time I returned, the manor's main gate was already locked, but this time I saw everything and tasted everything. Sugar-roasted chestnuts, osmanthus fermented rice wine, sugar figurines, acrobatics. We strolled until the moon came out and the crowds dispersed. I pushed Xie Lingheng, walking very, very slowly. The black sparrows on the willow branches were startled by the sound of the wheelchair, chirping as they flew deep into the pear garden. Tonight's moonlight was too beautiful, so beautiful it made one want to pour out their heart. Actually, I am not afraid of you laughing at me, young master, but these past 3 years, I've secretly cried several times. Before coming to the capital, my father's hair turned white with worry. I was naive back then, patting my chest and promising him that Dao Shi, was the most capable girl in Tao family village I could cook, hunt, and shoot arrows. It didn't matter that my low status wasn't a match for the heir. As long as I treated people sincerely, life would turn out well. Under the moonlight, with wind swaying the shadows, Xie Lingheng quietly listened to me speak. But later I discovered that the skills I had were completely useless in the Marquis's manor. There are kitchen maids here to cook, specialized people to buy whatever you want to eat. Hunting, archery, none of it is needed. I only needed to do one thing: learn the rules. I really worked hard to learn them, but no matter what, I couldn't learn them well. Back then I thought Tao Shi must be the stupidest girl in the world. No matter how hard I try, I can never become an accomplished person like Miss Wen. As I said this, my nose tingled and tears fell. Xie Lingheng looked at me and said gently, "Then what kind of person does Axie want to become?" This question stumped me. What the matron wanted was a dignified and competent young mistress. What Xie Kongjing wanted was a wife who pleased him in every way. It seemed no one had ever cared about what kind of person Tao Shi actually wanted to become. No, Now there was someone I stared blankly at Xie Linheng, feeling somewhat bashful. I don't know. The wheelchair creaked forward half a step, just enough to envelop me in shadow. Me heart instantly hung suspended in mid-air, and I could only see a trickling stream flowing in the depths of his eyes. It doesn't matter if you don't know, the current Xi is already a very, very good girl. A fresh and curious incident occurred in the capital. The distinguished heir of the Dingyuan Marquis Manor, renowned for his refined character, got into an argument with someone at a tavern and actually had one of his legs broken. As a scholar, he never did anything improper in his daily life. For some unknown reason, after returning from his studies in Jiangyan, his temperament changed drastically, and he began frequenting winehouses daily, drinking himself into oblivion. When Xie Kongjing was carried back to the manor, he looked utterly disheveled. For a time, the Songju garden was thrown into chaos. When I learned of the news, I was already kneeling in the ancestral hall. The matron, following Lady Xi's orders, made me kneel in reflection. The Xie family's century-old reputation has been ruined today because of your fraternal discord, spreading gossip throughout the entire city. So Xie Kongjing's broken leg was related to me. The young master of the general's manor merely criticized me once, and he flew into a rage on the spot, only to end up getting beaten himself. I wanted to defend myself, but the door closed, and there was no more sound. Outside the window, rain poured down heavily, and the draught through the hall made my back feel cold. After kneeling all night, my knees had lost all sensation. At the break of dawn, the door was suddenly pushed open, and someone walked in. That person's face gradually became clear. It was Xie Linheng. This was the first time I'd seen him walk in front of me. His posture wasn't graceful, but he walked forward step by step with determination. Sweat beaded on his forehead, yet he reached out his hand to me. Xie, don't be afraid. It wasn't until he placed his hand on my forehead that I belatedly realized I was burning up badly. The old maidservant tried to stop him, but was held back by the guards. Xie Linheng's voice was calm yet authoritative, every word resounding with weight. Axie is my wife. She has done nothing wrong and should not be subjected to such harsh treatment. If mother wishes to punish someone, punish me. What my heart desired, what my dreams sought deafening, like stars exploding before my eyes. It turns out that a good relationship is never about making yourself suffer to accommodate others, but having someone willing to stand against the whole world for you, telling you just be yourself, I'll protect you. Xie Kongjing always wanted to change Axie into what he liked, but Xie Linheng loved her just the way she was originally. After I recovered from my illness, I learned that in his rush to come save me that day, Xie Linheng's old leg injury had flared up again. When Junan came to find me, Xie Linheng had just been held down by several people and forced to take medicine and had fallen into a deep sleep. Junan was someone who had lived on the edge of a blade, yet when speaking of his master, his face was full of sympathy. The general's leg injury was from that year when he saved the Marquis and the second young master. When it flares up, it is like 10,000 ants gnawing at the bone, not something an ordinary person could endure, yet the general refuses to get proper treatment, which is why it has been getting worse and worse. He probably had no other choice, so he came to me, begging me to supervise Xie Linheng's recovery. Xie Linheng's brows were tightly furrowed, his sleep far from peaceful. The moment my hand touched his fingertips, it was tightly grasped. When Xie Linheng woke up, he saw me leaning against the bed, sleeping soundly. Gentle breathing fell upon my cheek. As soon as he moved, I woke up. Xie Linheng was an excellent teacher, but not a very good patient. He seemed to pay no mind to his injured leg. Seeing me bring over the medicine bowl, he gently shook his head. Madam need not trouble yourself over me. This leg was meant to stay festering all along. What a strange thing to say, who wouldn't want their illness to heal. He had always answered any question I asked, but this time he only turned away. Silent for a long while, I quietly left the room and sought out Junan. Upon hearing it was about this matter, Junan hesitated to speak, and in the end, actually cried. Our general is punishing himself. Years ago, when the Northern Dai launched a surprise attack, the Xia father and son defended Jianmen passed to the death, waiting for reinforcements. At that time, His Majesty, who had personally come to supervise the army in Jiang Bei, lingered at Kishui Mountain for several days, hunting for pleasure. One flippant phrase, "Let's wait a bit," cost the lives of the Shia father and son along with 3,000 soldiers. The general entered the palace as a study companion in his youth. Clever and quick-witted, he often received praise from the late emperor, to speak with great disrespect. Even His Majesty, who was still crown prince at the time, was outshone by him, and thus the seeds of disaster were sown. Outsiders see the Marquis household bathed in honor and favor, its glory boundless. Yet little do they know it is merely cooking oil over a roaring fire. Later, when the general's military achievements became illustrious, His Majesty used the excuse of returning home for mourning to strip him of his position and ordered him back to the capital to recuperate. I understood Shilin was too excellent and drew jealousy. Me heart immediately felt sour and heavy. His father and brother died in battle because of him. His mother resented him, how sad he must feel inside. A quarter hour later, I was once again kneeling in the ancestral hall. These 3 years I'd knelt in the ancestral hall countless times, but only this once was it willingly and from the heart. Pouring 2 cups of strong liquor before the memorial tablets, I knelt exceptionally straight. Old General Shia, Second General Shia, may your spirits in heaven bless the eldest young master's leg to heal quickly and suffer less. If it is convenient, you could also appear in his dreams. Tell him to stop blaming himself. The living must always look forward. I rambled on for quite a while, then kowtowed 3 times heavily. Perhaps sincerity moves heaven, for from that day on, whatever medicine I brought him, he drained in 1 gulp without resistance. Combined with applying medicine and acupuncture, his leg injury improved day by day. So much so that on this day, Shilin actually proposed taking me to a hunt. His leg bone was kicked heavily, and amidst the piercing, bone-deep pain, an untimely thought emerged in Xie Kongjing's mind. He was injured. Would Axi feel sorry for him? That dandy from the Weiyun Marquis household dared to speak ill of Axi right in front of him. After hearing just 1 sentence, he couldn't help but rush forward to fight him. Unfortunately, that dandy had brute strength. He didn't gain any advantage and even broke a leg. Axi will come see him. Right. Xie Kongjing waited eagerly all day, only to receive news that Axi had been punished to kneel in the ancestral hall. Upon hearing this, he immediately wanted to go there. Fushun couldn't hold him back in time, and he fell off the bed. His freshly bandaged wound split open, blood flowing freely. Xie Kongjing grimaced in pain but still wouldn't give up, grabbing his crutch to head out the door. Mother has always been kind-hearted, but this time she must be truly furious. Who knows how she'll torment Axi? Just as he finished speaking, Angui returned. Fushun hurriedly gave him a meaningful look. Angui understood immediately, blocked his master's path, and persuaded. Miss Axi is fine. She only knelt for a short while before going back. She is perfectly well. Only then did Xie Kongjing feel relieved, allowing Fushun to apply medicinal ointment and drinking a bowl of calming soup. After he fell into a deep sleep, Fushun pulled Ngui into the courtyard and asked about the ancestral hall incident. So Miss Axi was rescued by the eldest young master. Ngui nodded. Fushun felt the situation was getting tricky. Oh no, it seemed the master had truly fallen for Miss Axi. What should they do now? Truly fate plays tricks on people. After Xie Kongjing woke up, he finally learned from the maid-servants that Axi had been rescued by his elder brother. Furious and flustered, he raised his hand and smashed a glass lamp. Axi clearly has me in her heart, so why would she have a change of heart? Fushun didn't know what to say. These past few days he had seen it clearly. Miss Axi had completely let go of his master. But how could he say such words to his master? Seeing Xie Kongjing grab the wine pot and about to guzzle more wine, he hurriedly rushed forward to stop him, and in his desperation came up with an idea. Young master, actually Miss Axi and the eldest young master haven't consummated their marriage. He had an old acquaintance at Luquan Garden who mentioned in passing that although the two lived in the same room, they slept in separate beds. Xie Kongjing was stunned, then quickly figured out what was going on. The two must have faked the marriage. The emperor bestowed the marriage, an imperial decree that couldn't be defied. so elder brother took pity on Axie and married her. Axie was grateful to elder brother, which is why she treated him well. The more Xie Kongjing thought about it, the more convinced he was that this was the truth. Everything made sense now. No, there was a way to turn things around in the future. He could give Axie a new identity and marry her again. Mother had always doted on him. She would surely agree with this thought. He could no longer hold himself back and wanted to see Axie immediately. Fushun couldn't dissuade him, so he could only help him get dressed, assist him into the wheelchair, and take him to the hunting grounds. The sky was high and clouds sparse, banners fluttering in the wind. I thought it would just be the two of us. But before mounting the horse, a group of young masters in fine robes appeared from nowhere, staring over at us with unbridled arrogance. The one leading them said lazily, "I heard General Xie is superb at horseback archery and a model in the military. Why not compete with me today?" My heart suddenly skipped a beat. Shi Linheng struggled to stand up and bowed respectfully. "This subject's body is unwell. I am afraid it would spoil your Majesty's refined interest." His Majesty's gaze fell on me, his eyes full of mockery. "Don't tell me you are afraid of losing face in front of your wife." I could no longer hold back, bowed and asked, "Your Majesty, why not let this commoner woman compete in my husband's place?" That group acted as if they'd heard the biggest joke, mocking. Absurd. Where is there a rule for women to compete with men? Country women are ignorant and shallow. Not knowing the rules is quite normal. Seelinhang held my hand and shook his head. "Since your Majesty has such refined interest, this subject shall naturally keep you company." As soon as he finished speaking, a guard nearby led over a jet-black steed. The horse was tall and robust, rearing up on its hind legs, clearly not an ordinary mount. Me heart sank, knowing full well that Shielinheng's legs were impaired, yet making him ride such a spirited horse. This was clearly meant to humiliate him, and amuse themselves at his expense. Seeing Shielinheng struggling to prop himself up with his arms, I stepped forward first and snatched the reins from the guard's hand. I mounted the horse in one swift motion and reached my hand out to him decisively. "Husband, I'll take you." Shielinheng froze, and the people around him froze too. He quickly reacted, borrowing the momentum to leap onto the horse's back, sitting steadily behind me. His Majesty glanced at me disdainfully and tacitly gave his consent. He spurred his horse and took off first. Everyone snapped back to their senses, mounted their horses one after another, and galloped over. Once inside the hunting grounds, I was in my element, spurring my horse forward. Si Linheng drew his bow and nocked an arrow. The arrows flew as if they had eyes, precisely hitting one prey after another. Between heaven and earth, utterly exhilarating. Facing the wind, I shouted loudly, "Young master, I am here." The heartbeat behind me was fast and heavy, making my spine tingle. "We won," His Majesty left with a flick of his sleeves. Suddenly then did I belatedly feel afraid. Cold sweat suddenly broke out on my back. Shi Linheng and I locked eyes. He smiled faintly. "Don't be afraid, I am here." My heart inexplicably settled down. Only later did I learn how dangerous today had been. His Majesty was ambushed on his way back to the palace, severely injured, and passed away within a month. The throne changed hands, and the always low-key third prince ascended to become emperor. The new sovereign worked diligently for prosperity and loved his people. Much, much later, I finally learned that Shilinhang had a hand in all this, compared to Xie Kongjing, who only focused on romantic entanglements and personal gains and losses. Shilingheng's charm lay in the fact that he had both the deep affection to protect one person completely and the breadth of mind to shoulder the responsibility for the world. His kindness toward Axie was respect and favoritism. His kindness toward the world was duty and responsibility. Shilinghang was reinstated to his original position and was returning to Jiangbayon the day of his departure. I went to see him off. Shilinghang's leg injury had almost completely healed, and when he stood up, he was much taller than me. Everything he had promised me that day, he had done without exception. The divorce papers were signed, the banknotes were given, and soon someone would escort me home. Perhaps all the words that needed to be said had been said. Xie Lingheng looked at me, unusually impatient. "Don't you have anything you want to say to me?" I thought carefully for a moment and shook my head. Xie Lingheng's expression instantly darkened. Junin was making faces at me from the side. I suddenly remembered there was still something I hadn't done and hurriedly said, "Wait." Xie Lingheng paused in his motion of mounting his horse, looking over with expectant eyes. I rummaged through the trunk and pulled out a pair of tiger skin knee pads, shoving them into his arms. "Jiang Bei is bitterly cold. Please take good care of yourself." Xie Lingheng took the knee pads in a daze, examining them over and over several times. He looked very pleased, but in the end still asked, "Nothing else you want to say to me?" I shook my head and said earnestly, "Nothing else." Xie Lingheng said nothing more, only looked at me with a grieved expression. "Be careful on the road." I raised my hand toward him in farewell. Xie Lingheng looked at me for a long while before giving a light shout and riding away on his horse. I smiled, turned past the bamboo grove corridor, and ran into Xie Kongjing, whom I hadn't seen in a long time. He had been sent by Madame Xie to recuperate at a temple and had lost a whole lot of weight. For some reason, the injury on his leg still hadn't healed, and he walked with a limp. I met his delighted gaze. He cautiously sought confirmation. "Is it because of me?" I looked at him in astonishment. "Xie Kongjing, what are you saying?" Xie Kongjing looked at me and simply laid it out. "I know you and elder brother only had a fake marriage. So what?" Not seeing any panic on my face, Xie Kongjing felt somewhat uneasy. "So I still have a chance, don't I?" At this point in the conversation, I realized he still hadn't given up. Some things are better said clearly. "Xie Kongjing, whether my marriage with him is real or fake has nothing to do with you whatsoever. Don't bring up these words again. Saying them is completely improper and invites ridicule." Xie Kongjing lowered his eyes for a moment, thinking about something, and when he looked up again, there were faint tears. "Axie, I regret it." These past days he had gradually come to understand that Axie had probably truly fallen for elder brother. When he and elder brother were both injured, Axie tirelessly cared for elder brother without even coming to see him once. When brother was going back to Jiang Bei, Axie sewed knee pads for him night after night under lamplight, not letting anyone else do a single stitch. That day, when he rushed to the hunting grounds, he saw Axie with brother, the two riding together on one horse, returning with a full load. The expressions he'd seen most on her face were dejected, disappointed, and sullen, yet he had never once seen her smile so brightly. She was so beautiful he couldn't look away. In that moment, he knew he had lost completely. These past days I've often thought, if I had treated you better before, would things not have turned out this way? Thinking of the old days, my heart darkened. "Xie Kongjing, actually I am not that brave a person. If you had treated me better, perhaps I could have wronged myself and lived out those days. Nanny's cane hurt when it struck, but not as much as your words. You looked down on me, single-mindedly trying to discipline me into the wife you imagined, never caring how hard my life was. But later, someone told me I didn't need to change myself for anyone. Just go ahead and be myself in this world. There would be someone who likes me just as I am. I don't need to be perfect. Tao Xi is already a very, very good girl. So between you and me, there is absolutely no possibility anymore. When I caught up with Xie Lingheng, he had barely gone 10 li outside the city. Ridiculously slow pace, I reined in my horse, holding Dahua in my arms, and called out his name loudly. "Xie Lingheng, I am here." He turned around on horseback, first startled, then smiled. The setting sun melted like gold, falling into his eyes like fire burning. "Is there really a female general in the military camp who possesses tremendous strength and can take on 10 men single-handedly? Yes. Is there really a female physician with miraculous healing skills who can bring the dead back to life? Yes. Is there really a female strategist skilled in mystical arts and military tactics? Yes." Xie Lingheng said yes 3 times in a row. "I want to go see them, may I? I want to go see the way those women he spoke of live their lives, those women who are not bound by propriety and live for themselves." Xie Lingheng spurred his horse forward, his long sleeves fluttering. He reached out his hand toward me, joy brimming between his brows. "I'll write,"